All right. So I'm excited about this one. It's We've been talking about this for a little bit. This song cracks me up so much. So today, guys, we're just gonna have a quick discussion about well, I think it's gonna turn into a discussion about probably dating and just like relationships and like attraction and that kind of stuff. On the surface, we're taking a look at the lyrics for the song Soldier by Destiny's Child. If you guys haven't heard that one, you should definitely look it up before listening to this, because it might not make a lot of sense to you. But the song has always sort of cracked me up because there's just this stereotype out there, right? Where like girls only like bad boys and just like that kind of thing, where a lot of guys can kind of get it on their head that that women are only into jerks or like these dudes to like take advantage of them or like hitting on them and like all this other sort of stuff. And this song right here definitely doesn't help that narrative. But to me, I think that there's a little bit beneath the surface of it that's not just a matter of women only like guys who are mean. So just taking a look at some of the lyrics, right, just so you guys kind of have an idea of what we're dealing with when we're talking about this song. If your status ain't hood, I ain't checking for 'em. Better be street if you looking at me. I need a soldier that is gonna stand up for me. Know how to carry big things, if you know what I mean. There's a lot to unpack there, right? It's a pretty philosophical song. How you feel about that? Do you like guys that carry big things, if you know what I mean?
I mean, I guess back in the day before I grew up, like if you looked at my relationships, they would all kind of be that situation there. I was going for guys that were horrible acting because we think that we can change them into, it's like a project.
Let me fix them, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think this song, the essence of it, right, like the biggest thing as far as a conversation piece that goes into it, is basically talking about, like, well, at least what these women in particular find attractive, right? Talking about, like, the attractiveness.
Oh, no, it's definitely attractive. We talk about that, too. Like, I mean, you were the first, I don't know, like, person that had their stuff together that I've dated, like, ever.
The first non-hot mess. Just, I was the lucky one, right? Unbelievable.
You dress nice. You got all that going. You always dress nice, except like on the weekends when you don't have anything scheduled. Then you
like around.
You wear like
sweatpants and
weekend clothes,
but shorts.
During the rest of the week, like you've seen the videos, he wears the nice button-up shirt and his hair looks nice and he looks put together. I look a hot mess all the time. But when I'm looking at when in the past, especially, like I'll look at these guys like, and as soon as we were talking about this the other day, he brought up, and we've said it at the same time, like the Nelly look from back in the day. The big oversized
big jeans,
clothes,
the big t-shirts, the grills, the hat.
Girls tend to like that.
Well, and what do you think it is that's attractive about it?
I don't know, because that's what we talked about too. Like, we don't know. I don't understand what's exactly draws you to that. And what we came up with was kind of maybe, because I live in the BFE. I've lived here the majority of my life. Like, people around here don't generally look like that
at all. Yeah.
Ever. And so then when we see that, like, it's different. Mm-hmm.
So there's a definite attraction to the other thing that's present to it, right? But something we also talked about, which I think hits on a big part of it, is just when somebody is completely comfortable, like, in their own skin and stuff, like they kind of got their own, like, style. I didn't hit her or anything, guys. It's the baby. It's all right. But when somebody has, like, their own, just their own sense of style, right? When they, like, wear stuff that they're comfortable in, that, like, fits the way that they want to put themselves out there, that fits their mindset, and just fits their everything, you know, like it fits that vibe that they're giving off. I think that there's something that attracts people to that, you know, when like somebody is not sort of pretending to be something they're not, because we talked about this too. Like, if I came in just one day and all of a sudden I was just wearing this huge t-shirt like these pants and just this other stuff, you'd look at me like I'm nuts, and then I would look at myself like I'm nuts, because it's not me, you know, like it's not my thing. But you get that on the right person, it could potentially work, you know, like depending on who it is. I think there's a big element of that.
Well, we look at a lot of those rappers, like, they want to play dress up, it seems like, when they're in their, wearing their nice music video clothes for like the award ceremonies or whatever.
Yeah.
In particular, like T.I. wants to feel that so bad. I mean, he looks nice wearing it, but then once he starts talking, it just seems like it doesn't fit his personality. And I love T.I. Like, I like the way T.I. talks. He's one of my favorite rappers, but it just doesn't seem to correlate with how he looks. And we talk, like, Chris Brown's new music video, City Girls. Like, he's wearing old style clothes, but I'm just like, it just doesn't go
with all
right.
the ink and stuff like that, it makes for a weird sort of juxtaposition, right? I get you. And yeah, I really think that that's huge when people see it when you're not being yourself, you know, like when you're kind of putting on airs or just like you're doing something, because I think that this is the sort of person that this girl finds attractive. So now this is what I'm going to do. I feel like it's a losing strategy.
But like a lot of times with going back to the girls finding the bad boys, like I said, we look at like, oh, they'll get better because of us. They want to change because we're bringing it the better part of them out of them. Like, I can't tell you how many relationships I've been in where the people's families come to me and been like, since they've been with you, they've just been like, they've turned over a new leaf. They've got a job. They've really got their crap together. Well, yeah, on the surface, it looks like they got their crap together, but then in the background, like, they're treating me like crap and I'm paying for everything.
And because it's not coming from an internal place, you know, like it's not a change that's happening because it's natural and like they've reached the point where they're like, you know what, I actually do need to get my crap together. It's the direct result of like your interference, you know, the fact that somebody else came into their life and just was like, hey, I think that you aren't doing what you need to be doing. That can be a motivator, you know, having external stuff out there, man, can be a huge motivator when you have people that care about you, just family support and all that. And I'm not saying that it's bad either, but when we're talking about lasting change, like when you're talking about somebody actually becoming a different person, it's not enough to have just stuff on the outside. It's never enough.
And a lot of it's the other person putting in the work is what's actually causing all that change looking stuff to happen. It's so surface level that it's not even really scratching the surface of what the person's doing. So now, like, that used to make me feel good. Like, oh yeah, they're putting in work to be with you and all this. And now I'm like, if your family came to me and told me that Kelvin's just made such a turnaround, I'm going to be like, bull crap. Like, I'm going to start reevaluating our relationship now because I've learned that means that I'm doing probably more than I need to be doing.
If all of a sudden, like, you found out that I'm just a completely different person than before we were met, it could be a red flag, right? There could be some issues with that. So I'm with you. And to kind of go back to the attraction thing again, I also think that there's an element of attraction to just the sort of like street mindset and stuff like that too, just because of the confidence in it. You know, I think that when you look at people that come from that background, they're not afraid to defend themselves. They typically have the value system where they like take care of the people that they're around and like that are in their family and stuff.
Or fuck them over.
That's where what you got to be careful of, right? Is that that's actually, I think, a really good talking point, is that you got to be careful of like the whole stereotyping thing, you know, where I think that there's an idea of like what guys are like that come from this background, and that can really mess up men or women's perception when they're talking to people, you know, where like they say, oh, these street guys, like they're all about family, they're rough around the edges, but or not. You know, this person that you meet might not be some weird like Beauty and the Beast situation, right? Where like on the surface he's this hairy monster, but like you fix him, he's gonna clean up real nice. It really might not be like that. This guy might just suck.
The majority of the ones that I work with criminals. I work with the jails and people getting released from prison, but a lot of them are not good people. Like, they've got 15 girls writing them and sending them stuff, and I'll be like, what are you doing? What's your plan here? I mean, it'll figure itself out. If they all leave, there's always another one coming.
Right.
They've got like so many girls sending them money.
That's famous last words, man. It'll work itself out. Whenever you hear those words, like you might want to reassess the situation, because there's a lot of things out there in the world you can't force, but it's good to have some sort of idea of where you want to be at, man. Like, you don't want just the wind kind of carrying you around through life.
But the way that they kind of live too is kind of exciting, because it it keeps
Impulses.
you always, like what's going to happen, like what we always got stuff taken care of because they're going to make it happen, or they're going to sit on the couch and you're going to make it happen.
Or it's not. That's exactly it, right? Because I know from personal experience with my own family, I've seen that, where I've seen guys that are in the streets that have that kind of money where like their partner and family don't have to work, and I've seen bums, like these guys that are doing street stuff that don't seem to be making any money off of it, or if they are, it's being blown and it's not going anywhere. And
I know, like a lot of like I've got an education, and I remember I was at work at my one job. I was working over so that I like to help, and I'm a big worker. I'll work as many hours. I was not getting paid even, and some guy was like, so you probably get taken care of because you're smart, like you speak well, you've got a good job, like your husband has to take really good care of you and appreciate everything you do. And I was like, what? And this was before me and Kelvin were together, so I was just like, I've never had that. Like, I've always been the one caring for everybody and doing everything, and I realized like my priorities are fucked up. Like if I'm willing to do that, like what am I working for? Right.
It made you reassess things, right? Where like having somebody kind of affirm your value to you, and you're like, wait, like if that is the case, like why am I fucking around with
and these guys? I used to tell myself that in my head, like I'm worth something. I've got a double master's degree. I work multiple jobs. I do what I need to do, and I come home and cook and clean and do all the housework and stuff. I'm not one to just not do stuff. And then hearing somebody else, they'll say, yeah, I mean, you're worth more than what it seems like you're willing to do.
To accept, right?
And then I was just like, I went home that weekend and I was like, we're done. Like, with that relationship.
I think this is over. Yeah, no, and sometimes it can be like eye-openers like that, right? And this isn't to make anybody feel bad, man. Let's say, like, if you don't have degrees in an education, you're not worth anything. Like, don't want that to get misconstrued at all. Like, that's not the case.
Never think that about anybody. Like, I like school. Like, when you ask me what my hobbies are, I like doing schoolwork. And it doesn't mean I'm smarter than anybody else, because a lot of the people that we're talking about in these jails and prisons, they are so much smarter than me in a whole bunch of topics. And I can't do a lot of basic stuff.
It's just value in the sense of like how much you respect yourself, just value in the sense that you don't feel like you have to take a certain level of treatment from people, because a lot of people don't believe that, a lot of people feel like they deserve to be in the situations they're in. They don't deserve to meet anybody better than who they got because of whatever your baggage might be, right? So like that's what we mean, man. Not just that if you don't have like a certain job or just a certain level of education, you're not worthy of being in a good situation. It's more about like having that sort of sense of value for yourself, having it internally, because when you don't have that, you end up in some really effed up situations.
And I actually was just talking to somebody about this today. Just because you don't have a lot to offer doesn't mean you won't in the future.
Yeah.
So like she's messed up in her whole life, like she's made tons of mistakes, but she's working to correct them, and
that's significant.
I worry that she's gonna get with one of these bad boys that's going to tell her all the right things and bring her right back to the same situation she was in before, because that sense of you aren't better than what your mistakes is a huge thing that people live with, and then they don't try for the good looking, dressed nice type guys. I never thought I had a chance with Kelvin.
And I think that going off of that too, man, something that for like the guys just because I know how it is. I talk to a lot of younger dudes, so I know the mindset.
You where are they feel a younger dude.
Well, younger dudes than me, but just the idea that you can't be a decent person and then find somebody. I think that's a toxic mindset to go.
It goes back to the Green Day song of "Nice Guys Finish Last."
Yeah, well, that's it. Like I think in culture that there is that, and to me, I think that there's a difference between being a good guy and a nice guy. Like not to get semantics, but nice guys to me, I see as people that are just. It's not coming from a place of sincerity, right? Like they're nice because they're like if if I'm this nice or if I'm like this friendly to this girl, then eventually she's gonna have to come around and date me because I'm so nice, like that type of thing, right? Where
but you're building her up for somebody else when you're doing that,
and and to me, what I've grown to see is that I don't even feel like you deserve her at that point. You're being a dishonest, like you're being a liar, like you're sitting here like beating around the bush, like pretending you're not into her, doing all this weird stuff, and then she dates somebody else, and then you get butthurt. You're like, you can't be mad, like you didn't do anything, like you weren't honest, like you were into her, but for whatever reason, whether it was like lack of confidence or just like whatever the heck's going on in your head, you didn't take the chance on it. You can't be butthurt when she finds somebody else, like I think to me, being a good person, or like when you're dating somebody, like it's not about like kissing ass, like it's not about like trying to transform yourself into somebody this person is gonna like, and I think that's why you have to come into it with a certain level of confidence, where like if you're somebody that doesn't like yourself, I don't recommend dating, to be honest with you. If you're not somebody that's happy with where you are as a person, it's not going to go well.
I think with, I don't think you have to love yourself, because like I'm one of the most self-critical people there is, but I'm really good at being in a healthy relationship. But the other person you're with needs to be able to build you up too. And if you're always like, one of the things that I work hard to get people to do is accept a compliment from the person that they're with. And one of the things that you need to understand is whether or not it's sincere. Like working in these jails and prisons, I get complimented so many times, but I've learned just to say, oh, thanks. Like my big one is usually like, oh, I like your shoes, or like these guys aren't telling me that, but I'll be like, thanks, I got them on sale at Walmart for $3 or something like that. I discount it. So that's something that we can talk about at another time, like being able, because there's a whole big long story behind accepting compliments.
The ability to accept.
But with the guys, like they are good talkers, and like the way that they carry themselves, most of them are severely, like they're not as confident as we think, like getting in my office and stuff, like
absolutely, like once you learn about them and stuff, you really learn that there's a lot more behind that mask, but you get good at the manipulation or the seduction piece when that's all you have to offer, or it becomes a necessity, like when you're doing it out of a need because this is the only way for you to get stuff, or like this is the only thing that you have to provide in a relationship, you're really good at it.
Well, you think about like the way that some of them come across. Some of it is antisocial for some of them too. Like we can't discount that. Some of them are really,
some of it's mental health disorders.
Yeah, they really are not caring. They'll say whatever they gotta say to get what they want, and some of them have learned how to sweet talk and say all that stuff, and then you're like, but you said this. With my ex, I told you we went to relationship counseling, pre-marriage counseling, all this stuff, and then when we got married the next day, I'm like, it was just like a switch, and I'm like, why? We went to all this stuff, like we agreed on everything, and he's like, well, if I was actually telling you the truth, you wouldn't have got married. Well, I feel like that should have been my choice.
Yes, if I would have told you how I really am, you would have never gotten a
relationship. Like literally the day after the wedding, that's how it was. Like the night we got married, he told somebody that all he gets to hear is yelling. It's like, I've never once yelled, and after that, it was just like, boom.
The writing was on the wall at that point.
Yeah. That was the one where somebody told me, like, oh, you're better than this. I'm like, I am better than this. Why am I crying every day?
What? And yeah, I think that's a good point, where, like, don't put some weird sort of parameter on yourself where you're like, I'm not worth something till I lose this amount of weight. Like, I'm not worth something until I get this amount of money. That's not what we're talking about at all, man. To me, it's more about figuring out your own demons, and if those are something that's interfering with your ability to interact with people, what you gotta do to work on it. Like if you are unhappy with your appearance and that's causing you problems with being able to interact with people, then work on it. Like figure out what you want to do, but you're doing it for yourself. Like you're not doing it because this is the only way that this girl's gonna talk to me. Like you're doing it because it makes you feel bad, and you don't want to feel bad, so you're trying to figure it out, Because really, like, if you find somebody that you click with, it's not about the looks in general. It goes back to the personality. Like, Calvin never wanted to be with me when we knew each other for a couple of years before we started dating. He did.
And it took a lot of work on my part. But part of that was the whole he doesn't want to play the game of relationships, and he was just like, I don't know.
We both done it, you know?
Yeah,
we both been there with the bullcrap stuff, and we were like...
So he was just like, I'm not doing relationships anymore, blah, blah, blah.
I'm kind of not feeling it.
And I'm like, but we are going to do a relationship. And I was very, like, I'm very upfront, I'm very blunt, I'm very honest, I don't know how to beat around the bush. And so he knew I wasn't playing games. I'm not trying to do that. And I think that once you get that, it's hard to go back to anything else.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people look at my bluntness as a negative.
And that's it, right? When you find the right person and stuff, man, like, you're gonna know it because it'll work, you know? I'm like, not saying that I'm about some romantic fairy tale relationship type stuff, because
we don't have like a romantic relationship. You know, I don't feel like it's a good relationship, but it's not like
romance. Why we got these damn kids? When you got little kids, romance goes out the window for a little bit. You still do stuff and crap together, man. Where you try to like make sure it's not just like living with a roommate. Like, I'm still grabbing butts and just.
But I think like we keep it real, and I think that that's more important than like the fairy tale that people associate with romance.
And I think that's it too. Like, when you're in a long-term relationship, like, not every moment is gonna be this hot and heavy like romantic period, you know. And I think that that's a reason that some people break up sometimes, right? Is that when they're with somebody for long enough, eventually like things just aren't the same intensity that they used to be, and they're like, oh, that means we don't love each other, better find somebody else. And that's really not a great way to handle stuff, you know, because that doesn't mean that you're now all of a sudden in a bad part of your relationship. Like, crap ebbs and flows, you know, like the same way that nothing about our lives or ourselves even is the same like day to day, you know. Like, relationship crap isn't the same day to day. Like, some days you're feeling closer than others. So, like, some parts of your relationship are going to be more physical, sometimes it won't, sometimes it'll be more emotional and needy, somebody needs help, sometimes it won't. That's something you talk to me about and everything, and I agree with that. But it's not stagnant, you know. Like, relationships don't just stay one way all the time.
I think that that's something that like we use as almost like a mantra for our whole lives. Like, what's happening right now is not permanent.
It's not, and it helps being able to see that
with kids. Like, we
this
have
isn't forever,
a newborn and a 2-year-old, and then the other kids.
It can be brutal some days, man.
And like, I'm working and he's not working. He took some time off from work.
Yeah, so daddy daycare right now,
so he could take care of the kids. And I'm just like, I can hear all the kids screaming sometimes. This feels like at once, and I'm like,
that does happen.
Well, now for the last 6 weeks he knows how I felt.
That does happen. No, but it's stuff like that, man. We're just being aware that, like, if you're going through like a period in your relationship where you aren't happy, or you think things need to be different, that doesn't mean give up on it, you know. Like, maybe you're going through
it's bad.
Well, but that's the thing too, right? Is like being able to recognize, like, or do we need to be putting in more effort, you know? Like, because we talked about the fact that we need to be having like more date nights or more time to just like sit down and talk, so like it isn't feeling like our marriage is falling apart, because it's work, you know. Like, you gotta upkeep it, you gotta water
every single day is work. And I think, like, at least we haven't done it as often, but we do check-ins. Like, hey, what do you need from me? Do you need me to do more of or do less of, or something, just to kind of be like, what can I do to help you feel better? But if you ask for something and they're not willing to do it, like, not as something that's like outlandish, but like something that's normal, and they're just like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to change for you.
A little toxic, right?
Yeah.
A little negative, man. So I actually like this topic. We should come back to this one again at some point. We got to get you ready to leave, you guys, man. I know this one's a shorter one than usual, but I think we covered a lot of stuff. I definitely think that this will probably be something we talk about again, because there's so much crap there.
We always go back to relationships.
It will, because that's kind of at the root of what's going on for a lot of people, right? Whether it's romantic stuff or just like relationships with family, co-workers, friends, like all that crap, you know? So.
One of the things that I say to my clients a lot is, if I'm talking to a girl, I'll oftentimes be like, guys suck. And if I'm talking to a guy, I'll be like, girls suck.
Yeah, they can relate. They
can definitely like bring you down. And a lot of my clients, like, their lives would be so much more manageable if they had a supportive person in their life. And being alone's hard, and it's scary for a lot of people. Being able to be alone is a skill that a lot of people don't have.
And it's good to cultivate, man. But all right, we don't want to get off on too big of a tangent. So we'll get ready to leave you guys alone. Appreciate you listening. We'll talk to you guys again in the next one.